Hey guys, YouTuber Rotundert here. Alright, and as I told you guys at the end of my last video, I told you guys that with Clash of Champions being this Sunday, that I would make a retro review for a old Night of Champions pay-per-view. And so yeah, this is going to be that Night of Champions review, and this is going to be a review for Night of Champions 2008. So, yeah, so overall, yeah, this was a pretty good show. Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't anything really bad on this show at all. Well, I mean, yeah, just about like every match was at least watchable. So yeah, there's really not really anything to really say that wasn't really that good on the show. I mean, 2008, I mean, I really do feel that it is a very overlooked year for a lot of the pay-per-views, because, yeah, 2008 was a pretty good year for the WWE for their pay-per-views. I mean, yeah, the pay-per-views in 2008 were overall pretty solid. I mean, yeah, I have, like, talked about some of them before, and, yeah, they were, like, relatively good, pay-per-views. So yeah, so 2008 I think really gets overlooked by a lot of people as far as like the pay-per-views go, because yeah, it was a pretty decent year for their pay-per-views. Yeah. And this pay-per-view really was no exception. I mean, yeah, this was overall a pretty good show. I mean, this pay-per-view, this was a really interesting one, because now, just on the previous episode of Raw before this show was, of course, the draft that year in the WWE, and yeah, and a lot of the superstars that competed on the show were actually drafted to like a different brand. So yeah, and with this being, of course, like Night of Champions, like every title in the WWE at the time was on the line, and yeah, so it was possible that like several championships, well, yeah, all the championships could possibly get moved to different shows. So yeah, so I did find that kind of interesting with this pay per view. That like, despite the fact that like several superstars were drafted to a different brand, like Vince McMahon did say that every match for this pay per view would still happen. So yeah, so there were the possibilities that like several championships could actually like go to a different brand after the show, depending on who held the titles. So yeah, so I did find that pretty interesting on the show. Yeah, and like I said, this was just a really good show all the way around. Like I said, just about every match was at least watchable. Well, I mean, there really wasn't anything that really like totally sucked on the show. I mean, there were like some matches that really were like uh kind of like uh kind of, well, I don't know how I could really say this, that weren't really bad, but just they were not anything special. But yeah, they weren't like really just like absolutely like boring or terrible or anything. Yeah, just yeah. I mean, so there really wasn't really anything boring on the show at all. So yeah, the show was like watchable from pretty much start to finish. So yeah, so I really can't find a whole lot to really complain about the show. I mean, it is a overall like just solid show from top to bottom. So yeah, if you haven't watched this show before, I would recommend watching it, because yeah, it is like a pretty good show. And yeah, I just really don't know like what I can say about what really wasn't that good about the show. So yeah, so just overall a good show all around. All right. So yeah, so let me just get started talking about the card on the pay per view. Yeah. So the show opened up like I said, all the titles were on the line. So this entire card was just championship matches. Hence, of course, the name of the show, Night of Champions. So yeah, so the show kicked off with the WWE Tag Team Championship on the line. It was The Miz and John Morrison defending against Finlay and Hornswoggle, and yeah, this was a pretty decent to even good uh, tag title match. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was pretty solid. I mean, yeah, it was like a very solid back and forth tag team match here. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I did find it kind of funny, like early on in the match, as like Finlay went out with John Morrison. John Morrison like ended up like, as he was like standing on the ring apron, he ended up like falling, and but yeah, John Morrison like fell like in between well, with the apron in between his legs, and so yeah, the apron just like hit him right in the nuts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Hornswoggle actually looked pretty good in the match. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people were thinking that like it really wasn't going to be taken too seriously, and Finley was really going to be legal for most of this match. But yeah, Hornswoggle was legal for a good point in the match, and yeah, Hornswoggle actually looked really good. Like he actually did like compete really well against Miz and John Morrison, and it was actually believable. It wasn't just really like something where it was done like totally goof, like all silly stuff, and just like Hornswoggle was just like doing a bunch of like silly, midget tactics against the Miz and John Morrison. Yeah, he actually did like compete really well against the Miz and John Morrison, and yeah, and it was a pretty good. Yeah, I think it was a good enough back and forth tag match. Yeah, yeah, and then. Yeah, then at one point, as Finley then like went for the Celtic Cross, I think on John Morrison, and yeah, as Hornswoggle ended up being tagged in, Hornswoggle tried to go for the tadpole splash, but the Miz ended up like knocking Finley like down to the floor. And as Hornswoggle was like distracted with Finley, then yeah, John Morrison then like recovered, and then he just grabbed Hornswoggle, and then just like threw him from the top turnbuckle down to the canvas, and then yeah, then John Morrison was able to pin Hornswoggle to get the win. So yeah, the Miz and John Morrison retained their tag team titles. So yeah, so this was a pretty easy solid tag team match and a pretty good way to open up the show. So yeah, I would give this match probably like a 2 3/4. Yeah. And then next up, then we had the United States Championship on the line with Matt Hardy defending against Chavo Guerrero. And yeah, this was interesting because yeah, Matt Hardy was one of the superstars that was ended up being drafted on the previous episode of Raw. Matt Hardy was drafted to ECW, so yeah, Matt Hardy was now technically a part of ECW, and Chavo was part of SmackDown. So yeah, so it was possible that like the ECW, well, the United States title could end up moving to ECW at this point. Yeah, and yeah, once again, this was a pretty solid match as well. I mean, yeah, nothing really that memorable about it, but yeah, it was still a solid enough match. Yeah, yeah, it was kind of like went back and forth. Like Chavo was like working on Matt Hardy's knee throughout most of this match, and then yeah, there were points where like, of course, like this was when like Bam Neely was with Chavo, I guess his bodyguard, and there were like points in this match where as Chavo was attacking the referee, Bam Neely attacked Matt Hardy. Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, it just kind of went back and forth. Like Chavo attempted to go for a frog splash, but Matt Hardy was able to move out of the way. Yeah, and it just kind of like went back and forth, and then yeah, then I did like the ending where like a Chavo tried to go for the Three Amigos on Matt Hardy, but then when Chavo went for the third suplex, Matt Hardy was able to counter it into the Twist of Fate, and so then yeah, Matt Hardy then was able to pin Chavo and get the win. So yeah, Matt Hardy retained the United States Championship, and so yeah, then like for at this point, then like the United States title ended up being on ECW for a little while after this. Yeah, but it did eventually end up like coming back to SmackDown. Yeah, but yeah, this was a pretty decent match too. I would probably give this, I don't know, probably around 3 stars. Yeah. Yeah. And then next up, then we had the ECW Championship on the line in a triple threat match. It was Kane defending against The Big Show and Mark Henry. And yeah, Mark Henry was just like added to this match just like during that week after like Mark Henry ended up like being drafted to ECW in like the supplemental draft after the like initial draft on the previous episode of Raw. So yeah, Mark Henry was like on ECW, and yeah, Kane, who was the ECW champion, he ended up being drafted to Raw on the draft episode of Raw, on the previous episode of Raw. Yeah, and Big Show was actually on SmackDown. So yeah, so I thought it was interesting that like each brand had a representative in this match. Yeah, and Mark Henry just ended up getting added because on the previous episode of ECW, he ended up like defeating Kane, and so that convinced Theodore Long, who was the general manager of ECW at the time, to put Mark Henry in this match. And yeah, this was actually surprisingly for who was in this match, it was actually a really solid match. match. Yeah, I mean, yeah, all three guys I thought did look decent enough in this match. Yeah, yeah. Kane, it appeared to have like gotten hurt early on this match after Big Show ended up like throwing Kane over the top rope, and it looked like his leg had hit the floor. So yeah, it looked like Kane got hurt. So yeah, for a little while in the match, it was just Big Show and Mark Henry going at it with each other. Yeah, but then yeah, Kane was eventually able to get back in the ring and continue on in the match. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, for like points of this match, like it was like Big Show and Kane like double teaming Mark Henry. At one point, like they were able to like double chokeslam Mark Henry. Yeah, and then yeah, Kane and the Big Show then eventually ended up going at it. Yeah, like the Big Show was able to chokeslam Kane and at one point in the match, yeah, and then yeah, it was kind of like a cool spot where like Big Show got like on the top turnbuckle trying to like splash onto Kane or something, but yeah, Kane was able to fight Big Show off, and yeah, Kane was able to like hit a superplex on Big Show. Though yeah, Kane didn't actually like stand up on the ring ropes to like execute the superplex. He actually was still like standing just like on the canvas and was like actually superplex Big Show. So yeah, that was kind of interesting to see. Yeah, and then yeah, then Mark Henry then just like came out of nowhere and then just like hit a splash on Kane and then was able to pin Kane. And yeah, Mark Henry won the match and Mark Henry won the ECW championship. So yeah, and this like kept the ECW championship on ECW now. So yeah, and yeah, like I said, this was a surprisingly uh, decent triple threat match considering who you had involved in the match. So yeah, so this was like quite a surprise right here. So yeah, so a pretty decent triple threat match. So I would probably give that at around I guess 2.5 stars. Yeah, it was actually like yeah, like I said, it was like surprisingly much better than it was probably like expected to be. So yeah. Yeah. And then next up, then we had one of the interesting matches of the night. Next up, the World Tag Team Championships were on the line. It was Hardcore Holly and Cody Rhodes defending against the newly debuted Ted DiBiase, and yeah, and Ted DiBiase said that like, of course, he had his like mystery tag team partner for the match. Yeah, but then yeah, when like Ted DiBiase made his entrance, he was like saying that his partner wasn't there yet, but yeah, he wanted to start the match anyway. And like, he can give his partner time to arrive. And he just wanted to start the match just by himself. But then yeah, then like as like Ted DiBiase was saying that he wanted to face Hardcore Holly. Yeah, Cody Rhodes then just ended up tagging Hardcore Holly in. But then yeah, then we had the swerve here where yeah, Cody Rhodes ended up turning on Hardcore Holly and attacking him, and it was revealed that Cody Rhodes was Ted DiBiase's tag team partner. And then yeah, Ted DiBiase and uh, then like put Hardcore Holly in the Cobra Clutch and then just slammed Hardcore Holly down to the mat, and then yeah, then he was able to pin Hardcore Holly, and so then yeah, then Cody Rhodes then wasn't well. Ted DiBiase won the tag titles now with Cody Rhodes, and of course this was like the start of like well, they started the Priceless team, and then of course they would later become Legacy when they aligned with Randy Orton later in the year. Yeah, and the interesting thing is that still to this day, Hardcore Holly still has not appeared in the WWE since. Like this was Hardcore Holly's. This is still Hardcore Holly's final WWE appearance. Hardcore Holly has never reappeared since. Hardcore Holly hasn't even like made any appearances for like any like Raw or SmackDown like specials, like their reunion episodes or like any sort of like specials like that. Like Hardcore Holly has never been seen in the WWE again since, which I thought was like kind of odd because I really was like thinking like after this like Hardcore Holly was like gonna go after Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase some more, but no, Hardcore Holly just yeah, this was his final appearance and he has never come back to the WWE since. So yeah. So yeah, of course, like I can't really rate this match. I mean, this was hardly even a match. Like this match was only like what, over a minute. So yeah, so I obviously can't rate the match, but yeah. Yeah, it did like have this swerve with Cody Rhodes turning on Hardcore Holly and aligning with Ted DiBiase. So yeah. And then next up, then the Intercontinental Championship was on the line. It was Chris Jericho defending against an unknown opponent. Chris Jericho was just told that he was going to defend the Intercontinental Championship on this night. And yeah, and this was of course like just a couple of weeks after Chris Jericho had turned heel after he had attacked Shawn Michaels and like injured his eye after he like threw Shawn Michaels into the Jeritron 6000 and also like threw his face right into the announce table. Yeah. So yeah, this was when like Chris Jericho like started like going into that save me phase rather than the save us stuff. Yeah. And yeah, and then as Chris Jericho was just like cutting a promo about like his actions and stuff, and that he's now there to just with the save me stuff. Then it was revealed that Chris Jericho's opponent was Kofi Kingston, who had just been drafted to Raw in the supplemental draft as well. Yeah, and this was a pretty good match once again. I mean, it wasn't anything like that memorable about it, but yeah, it was a entertaining match. Yeah, I mean, you had some like a really solid back and forth action between Chris Jericho and Kofi Kingston. And then yeah, Chris Jericho was just like using a bunch of like his heel tactics in the match. Like Chris Jericho was like just like at one point like he like just was driving a Kofi Kingston's throat into the ropes by just standing on Kofi Kingston's head and or like just like trying to kick his head into the ropes and stuff. Yeah, yeah, and it just kind of went back and forth. Kofi Kingston was just displaying his acrobatic style throughout the match. Yeah, and then yeah, you also like had a Lance Cade also like stand at ringside, and yeah, and he was like in support of Chris Jericho. Yeah, this was like around the time where like Lance Cade was like aligning with Chris Jericho. Yeah, yeah, and then as a Chris Jericho then like got a Kofi Kingston in the Walls of Jericho as like Kofi Kingston was in it. Yeah, then Shawn Michaels then just ended up like coming through the crowd, and he ended up giving Lance Cade the sweet chin music. Then, yeah, then as Shawn Michaels then got up on the ring apron, Chris Jericho like knocked Shawn Michaels off. But then, yeah, Kofi Kingston was able to uh, get was able to execute the Trouble in Paradise on Chris Jericho and was able to pin him. And so, yeah, then Kofi Kingston won the Intercontinental Championship. So, yeah, Kofi Kingston's first title win in the WWE. Yeah, and like I said, this was a pretty decent match. Like, I think it was solid enough. I mean, nothing too memorable about it, but yeah, it was still like a solid back and forth match between the two. So yeah, I would probably give that around 3 stars. Yeah. And then next up, then we had the women's championship on the line. It was Mickie James defending against Katie Lee Burchill, and yeah, this was for a women's match. I thought this was decent enough. Yeah, I mean we had like it wasn't a classic women's match, but yeah, it's not the worst one either. Or yeah, I mean I thought that this was solid enough for a women's match. Yeah, I mean yeah, Katie Lee was just like gaining the upper hand throughout like well just like throughout the match. Like she was like dominating the majority of the match. And yeah, she was like targeting a Mickie James shoulder in the match after like she had thrown Mickie James into the middle turnbuckle. Yeah, yeah. But then then Mickie James then started to battle back against Katie Lee. Yeah, and then the match ended with like Mickie James then just hitting the Mickey DT on Katie Lee and yeah was able to get the pin and Mickie James won and retained the women's title. So it was yeah, for a women's match, I thought it was solid enough. So yeah, so I can't really complain too much about it. So yeah, it was fine for a women's match. So I would probably give that around 2.25. Yeah. Yeah, and then next up, then we got to the big talking point of the show. And then we got the two World Championship matches, with the World Heavyweight Championship and the WWE Championship on the line. And yeah, and this was the big talking point going into the show because yeah, the two World Championship matches on the show, it was Edge defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Batista, and Triple H defending the WWE Championship against John Cena. And yeah, this was the big talking point going into the show because yeah, on the previous episode of Raw in the Draft, Batista ended up being drafted to Raw, and Triple H also ended up being drafted to SmackDown. You know? So yeah, so at this point, like both the World Heavyweight Championship and the WWE Championship were now on SmackDown, and with Edge and Triple H with their respective championships, and yeah, and now and John Cena and Batista, the two challengers in these matches, were now on Raw. So going into the show, like everybody was like saying that like 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 at least one of them, Batista or John Cena, were going to win the championship and bring it over to Raw. And yeah, and so like since the previous episode of Raw, going into the show, like yeah, people were just debating and just really making the arguments on who it was going to be. Was it going to be John Cena or Batista? And yeah, and I remember even me and my brother were like debating over this. Like my brother was saying that John Cena was going to win the WWE Championship, and I was saying Batista was going to win the World Heavyweight Championship. And yeah, and it was just like really mixed for everybody. Like everybody was just debating on who was going to do it. But yeah, it was just expected that like one of them were going to win their championship matches and bring one of the championships to Raw. But yeah, it was just very debatable on who it was going to be. Yeah, but okay. Next up, then we had the World Heavyweight Championship on the line with Edge defending against Batista. And yeah, this was a really good match. I mean, it was a really good back and forth match between Edge and Batista. I mean, these guys did work pretty good together. I mean, yeah, Batista did do better work in this. Like Batista, like did have like better matches with guys like The Undertaker, but yeah, Edge was still like a good guy for Batista to work with. Yeah, they did have good chemistry together as well. Yeah, and this was a pretty good match right here. Yeah, yeah. At one point, like early on in the match, like Edge like was able to like throw Batista, well, knock Batista out of the ring, and then yeah, Edge then ended up just kicking Batista back, and Batista ended up just like flying right over the ECW announce table, which I thought was kind of funny. Yeah. And throughout the match, Edge was just like continuing to kind of just try to use his heel tactics against Batista in the match to help him win. Yeah, but yeah, Batista like was able to battle back against Edge throughout the match. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I did like how on several occasions in this match, each guy like tried to go for their signature moves, but yeah, the other one ended up like countering the moves. Like Edge tried to perform a shoulder block takedown on Batista, but Batista was able to counter it and executed a big boot. Yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, I liked how, like, at one point, like, Batista tried to go for, like, the Batista bomb on Edge, but Edge was able to counter it into an execution. Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, and at one point, Edge, like, tried to go for the spear on Edge, but, well, Batista, yeah, what did I say? Edge tried to go for the spear on Batista, yeah, but Batista was able to just, like, execute a spine buster on Edge, yeah. So, yeah, and we had, like, those kinds of exchanges happening throughout the match where like yeah the other guy would just counter the opponent's signature moves, yeah. And then eventually then Vicky Guerrero, Zack Ryder, and Kurt Hawkins all came out. Of course, like this was still during the La Familia stuff with like Edge with Vicky Guerrero and Hawkins and Ryder and stuff, yeah. And yeah, they just came out. At first they didn't do anything, but then yeah, then at one point where it looked as if Batista actually did have the match won. And after Batista formed, yeah, Batista was able to execute a Batista bomb on Edge as Batista went for the pin. And as the referee was counting, the Vicky Guerrero then ended up just disrupting the count and pulled the referee out of the ring. Yeah, yeah. But then, as Edge tried to like cheap shot Batista as the referee was distracted with Vicky, Hawkins, and Ryder. Yeah, Batista then just like threw Edge's shoulder right into the ring post. Yeah, then Edge then just fell to the outside of the ring. Yeah, and then as the referee was like starting to make the count to count out Edge, Edge then just ended up like pulling the referee out of the ring and knocking him out. Yeah, and then Vicky then just like called for another referee to come out, and that other referee was Chavo along with Bam Neely. Yeah. But then, as Chavo was coming out, then Batista then just ended up like pulling Vicky Guerrero into the ring, and then he then just ended up like throwing Vicky right on top of Hawkins, Ryder, Chavo, and Bam Neely. Yeah. But then as Batista threw Vicky out of the ring, Edge then just nailed Batista with the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Chavo then came in and made the count to pin for Edge to pin Batista. So Edge won the match and retained the World Heavyweight Championship. So and by that it's with Batista not winning the championship, seemed like now that was a confirmation that John Cena was now going to win the WWE Championship at this point. Yeah, but this was a pretty good match overall. Well, like I said, Edge and Batista did like have good chemistry together, and this was a really good match. I would give this probably 3.5 stars. Yeah. And then we got the main event for the WWE Championship, Triple H defending against John Cena. And this was a really good, possibly even great match. Yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy this match a lot. I mean, I definitely say this was better than their match at WrestleMania 22. Yeah, I think probably like with Triple H now being a face rather than a heel, I think that allowed for Triple H to have better chemistry with John Cena, with the two of them being faces rather than a heel versus face thing. Yeah. And plus also, I think another reason this match was better is just because it wasn't ruined by a terrible crowd like the WrestleMania 22 match was. Yeah, but this was a really good to great match. I mean, it was really good back and forth action between Triple H and John Cena. Yeah, at one point like Triple H like was ended up like countering John Cena's 5-knuckle shuffle into a spine buster. Yeah, this was another thing, just like the Edge and Batista match, where like as each guy was like trying to go for their signature moves, it was ended up being countered by the other guy. So they did that once again in this match. Yeah, and it was like that where like Triple H ended up countering the 5-knuckle shuffle into a spine buster. Yeah, and then Cena then like at one point was able to gain the upper hand on Triple H. It looked like at one point Triple H had ended up like hurting his knee after John Cena had like thrown Triple H to the outside of the ring. Yeah. And so then after that then John Cena was then like starting to target Triple H's knees throughout the match. Yeah. Yeah. And then then eventually then John Cena was able to like execute the chop block and his shoulder blocks on Triple H. Yeah. Yeah. And then and there were like a few points in this match where Cena tried to go for the STFU on Triple H, but Triple H was able to avoid Cena being, putting him in the move. Yeah. Yeah. And then then at one point then Triple H actually then like hit a pedigree on John Cena, and it looked like that might have been it, but John Cena was able to kick out of it. Yeah, and Triple H also ended up surviving the FU in the match as well. Yeah, so some really good like back and forth action between the two, where each guy like they tried to go for their signature moves, but the other guy ended up countering it. They survived each other's finishing moves. Yeah, it was just some really good back and forth match where it just made you like really not know who was really going to win, because there were just like so many near falls throughout the match and so many spots where you would actually think that it would end for both guys. Yeah. Yeah, and then at one point, then and as Triple H tried to go for the pedigree again on John Cena, Triple H was unable to just get was able to yeah, Triple H was unable to cover John Cena because his knee was hurting. Yeah, and then and yeah, John Cena then like hit another FU on Triple H, but John Cena was also unable to go for a cover on Triple H after. Yeah, and then and yeah, then they just like continued to go back and forth with each other. They just exchanged hinge punches with each other. Yeah, yeah. Then at one point, then John Cena was able to get the STFU in on Triple H, but yeah, Triple H was able to like reverse it at one point, and then yeah, Triple H then like got John Cena in a crossface, but yeah, John Cena was able to roll through it. But, yeah, and then as John Cena was just like really dazed and dizzy, he tried to go for an FU on Triple H once again, but then yeah, Triple H then was able to fight out of it, and then yeah, Triple H then was able to hit a pedigree on John Cena and get the pin, and yeah, Triple H got the win and retained the WWE Championship. So neither Batista or John Cena ended up winning their world championships that night. Yeah, so that was a real big shock to a lot of people. Just since pretty much everyone was expecting either John Cena or Batista, one of them to at least like win the championship and take it to Raw, and neither of them did. So yeah, that was just a yeah. Yeah, that shocked pretty much everybody. I mean, everybody was just like so surprised that neither one of them did win the championships on this night. So yeah, so it looked as if like both titles were going to stay on SmackDown. But yeah, but of course, like the very next night on Raw, Edge ended up making an appearance on Raw for some reason, and then yeah, Batista then just like ended up this beating down Edge, and then that allowed CM Punk, who of course like had the Money in the Bank that year, come and cash in the Money in the Bank on Edge, and yeah, CM Punk was then like ended up defeating Edge and won the World Heavyweight Championship, and that brought the World Heavyweight Championship to Raw because yeah, CM Punk ended up being drafted to Raw as well. So yeah, so then that's how the World Heavyweight Championship ended up coming to Raw. And so that's how Raw got one of the championships again. Yeah. But yeah, this was a really, really good to great match. Yeah, I would definitely say this was better than their WrestleMania 22 match. And yeah, and it was like quite a surprise seeing Cena lose cleanly. I mean, that happens very rarely. So yeah, but yeah, really good to great match. I would probably give that a solid 4 stars. Yeah, this match was awesome, and I just really just loved the back and forth action and all the near falls, and just just a really well paced match. Yeah. So overall with the show, I would probably give it around. I think I would settle on a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, just yeah, the show was just pretty solid all the way around. Like I said, just every match was at least watchable. Yeah, there wasn't like anything really boring on the show. Nothing where just it was absolutely unwatchable. Like yeah, the show was like pretty solid and enjoyable for pretty much start to finish. So yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen the show before, check it out. It is like a really enjoyable show, and very solid all around. And yeah, like I said, I just think that 2008 was really overlooked as far as pay per views go because yeah, the pay per views really were like pretty good that year. So yeah, so like I said, if you haven't seen the show before, check it out. All right, so yeah, so I guess that's all I can really say about it. So yeah, so this does it for my review of Night of Champions 2008. I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.